Good morning, Parkway Manor. It's Mrs. Thomas. A special happy April Fool's Day to my first grade friends in room 121. I'm going to read a story for you today called April Fool, Watch Out at School. And it is by Diane DeGroat. So here he is with his calendar, and April 1st is circled, which is today. Gilbert woke up and looked at the calendar. It was April 1st. April Fool's Day! He hopped out of bed and started filling his backpack with tricks to play on his friends. His sister, Lola, peeked in the door and said, "Knock, knock." Gilbert answered, "Who's there?" "April Fool!" Lola shouted. Gilbert laughed and explained, "You're supposed to play a trick on someone, not tell jokes." "Okay," Lola said. "Do a trick on me." But Gilbert didn't have time to play tricks on his little sister. He was already out the door. He's got some supplies to take to school with him for his tricks. Gilbert met Patty on the corner. As they walked to school, Patty suddenly said, "Watch out, Gilbert! Your shoe's untied!" Gilbert stopped to tie his shoe, but it was already tied. "Gotcha," Patty said. "April Fool." Gilbert laughed. He couldn't wait to try that trick on somebody else. Maybe you can do that today. Principal Pug smiled and waved when he saw them. "Morning," he said. Day nice have." He was talking backward. The bell rang, and Patty said to Gilbert, "Up, hurry, let's." So he's speaking backward today. Mrs. Bird was not smiling or waving. She said, "Put away your tricks so we can get started with our reading lesson. Gilbert, please start on page 10. Gilbert stood up and read out loud. "Where is my book?" Sam asked. "I need it now." Mrs. Bird stopped him and said, "When someone reads out loud, it would be nice to know where the punctuation marks are." Then she said, "Here's an idea. When you come to a period, say pop. And when you see a quotation mark, say puff. A question mark can be huh? And the exclamation point is a bong. Try it." Gilbert took a deep breath and started over. "Puff, where is my book? Huh? Puff." Sam asked. "Pop, puff. I need it now. Bong." "Ooh," Gilbert said. "This is hard." Lewis said, "And sure is funny. Bong." Everyone laughed. Mrs. Bird laughed too and said, "Thank you for being a good sport, Gilbert. April Fool." Gilbert sat down and made a loud puff sound in his seat. "That wasn't me," he cried. "Somebody put a whoopee cushion there." "Gotcha," Lewis said. Do any of you have whoopee cushions at home? We have a couple. They finished their reading silently, but Gilbert kept thinking pop and boing whenever he saw a period or an exclamation point. He also kept thinking about how he could play a trick on Lewis. He had hot, spicy gum in his pocket, so he turned to Lewis and asked, "Would you like a piece of gum, Lewis?" "No way," Lewis said. Later, Gilbert put a plastic spider on Lewis's desk when he wasn't looking. "This is so fake," Lewis said when he handed it back. Then he slapped Gilbert on the back and said, "Your tricks are the worst." But Gilbert wasn't giving up. He still had a few more tricks up his sleeve. He also had a sign on his back that said, "I smell." No wonder everyone was snickering as he walked to the cafeteria. Snickering means kind of like laughing in a teasing way. "Lewis," Gilbert grumbled. And if you look, it says, "I smell." And then on the wall here, it says cafeteria this way and Mars that way. Before he ate, Gilbert first checked his seat for a whoopee cushion. There was none there, so he sat down and opened his lunchbox. Suddenly, he jumped out of his seat and yelled, "Ah!" There was a worm in his "It's just a gummy worm," Patty said. "And look, there's a note." The note said, "April Fool." It was signed Mother. Gilbert couldn't believe it. Even his mother had tried to trick him. Have any of your mothers or fathers tried to trick you? At recess, Frank said, "Watch out, Gilbert, there's a bee on your head." Gilbert swatted at his head while Frank laughed and said, "April Fool." Margaret said, "Watch out, Gilbert, your shoe's untied." Gilbert bent to tie his shoe. "Made you look," Margaret said. Gilbert sighed. He couldn't believe that he had fallen for that trick twice in one day. Then Philip shouted, "Watch out, Gilbert!" But Gilbert wasn't going to get tricked again. He said, "I'm not." But before he could finish, a kickball smacked him in the head. "I told you to watch out," Philip said. Ouch. "I thought it was another trick," Gilbert groaned as he rubbed his head. "This is the worst April Fool's Day ever. Everybody's playing tricks on me, but I can't trick anyone." "I told you your tricks were bad," Louis laughed. "You'll never trick anyone." Gilbert said, "That's what you think, Louis. I have one more trick I've been saving just for you." Louis laughed again and said, "What is it?" "I'm not telling you. You'll have to wait and see it." Gilbert whispered to Patty what his trick was. Psst, 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 psst. Patty said loudly, "You're right, Gilbert. That's the best trick ever." Louis snorted and said, "You'll never April Fool me." As they walked back to the classroom, Gilbert said, "Oh, Louis, let me hold that door for you." Louis asked, "Is this your trick?" "No," said Gilbert. He held the door open and Louis walked through very quickly. During spelling, Louis couldn't find his eraser. Gilbert said, "Here, Louis, you can borrow mine." Louis looked at the eraser and said, "Is this the trick?" "No," Gilbert said, but Louis inspected the eraser very carefully before he used it. When they went to the art table, Gilbert pulled out a chair and said, "Here you go, Louis. Have a seat." Louis looked at the chair and said, "Is it a trick? Right? It's a trick?" "No," Gilbert said, but Louis checked the chair very carefully for a whoopee cushion before he sat down. When Louis got up to clean his brush, Gilbert said, "Be careful, Louis, your shoe is untied." "Ha!" Louis said, "I'm not falling for that old trick." But his shoe was untied, and Louis did fall when he stepped on the lace. Everybody laughed. "I told you your shoe was untied," Gilbert said. "I thought it was your trick," Louis said, tying his shoe. "No," Gilbert said, "my trick is much better than that." There he is, he fell. During quiet time, Gilbert brought a book to Louis and said, "I think you should read this, Louis. I really liked it." Louis wouldn't take the book. He said, "Is it a fake book? Is it glued shut? Is it going to squirt water at me when I open it up?" "No," Gilbert said. "It's just a really good book." Louis took the book, but he couldn't concentrate on the story. He kept looking over his shoulder to see where Gilbert was. So he's getting nervous. Where is this trick that he has for him? Louis was so busy watching out for Gilbert's trick, he didn't see Kenny putting a fake spider on his desk. Louis screamed when he saw it. "Gotcha!" Kenny said. It's like a little spider. And when Patty told Louis his shoe was untied, he bent to tie it. "Gotcha!" Penny laughed. And when Louis sat on his own whoopee cushion And Margaret said, "Gotcha!" Everybody laughed. When the bell rang, Louis finally shouted, "I give up, Gilbert! I can't stand it anymore! Do your trick already!" Can't take it. Gilbert smiled and said, "There isn't any trick, Louis. I just made you think there was. You got April fooled. Gotcha." So that's the end of our April Fool's Day story. I hope you liked it, and I would love to know if any of you are planning April Fool's Day tricks on your families. So my friends, if you want to send me a picture on balloons of a trick that maybe you did to someone in your house, you definitely can. My kids were up bright and early this morning already starting their tricks. When I came down to my computer this morning to do some work, I found this little buggy guy. It's a hex bug, I think it's called. He moves around. Aiden had this on my laptop keyboard. And if you know me, especially my first grade friend, Mrs. Thomas hates bugs and does not like them at all. So I screamed a little loudly. I was not ready for that. Then I went to the bathroom in the morning to finish getting ready, and all over the floor, I put them, if you can see them, were these little black pieces of paper that my Olivia colored and cut out, and they looked like ants all over the floor. She had them spread out all over the bathroom floor. So then I screamed again for Mr. Thomas to tell him that we had ants in the bathroom. And then last, Molly, even though she's only 4, still tried to trick me. But she wasn't very good with her trick, because she handed me this cup of water and said, Mommy, drink this water, drink this water." It is water. You probably can't see it, but it was water, and it had soap all in it. But she put so much hand soap in it that it was all bubbly at the top, so it didn't look like water at all. So her trick I did not fall for. But Olivia and Aiden, I did fall for their bug tricks, because they know their mother hates bugs. Have a great April Fool Day, Parkway Manor friends, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.